Walking with the Shadows with special guest Gemma Jade. Episode 6, Season 2 of the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast. Welcome to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast. Coming to you from the glacial dumping grounds known as the Michigan Basin. I'm Michelle.
And I am Wayne.
And we are a Michigan-based husband and wife educator and podcasting duo that after having a UFO sighting in March of 2018, have started to examine UFOs and other paranormal topics within Michigan and beyond.
Topics include UFOs, the paranormal, conspiracy theories, ghosts, alternative history and archaeology, cryptids, and all things strange and paranormal. So sit back, grab a drink, and come along with us on this journey down the paranormal rabbit hole. Hey everyone, welcome back.
Hello everyone.
It is June 2nd, 2022.
Yes, we are officially in June. The days are getting longer.
Summer is here, and so are the shadow people.
Great time of year. I'm so a night person during the summertime.
Yeah, I'm ready to make that change of getting up late, staying up late, just being late for everything. But what we're not going to be late for is our guest tonight. Miss Gemma Jade returns to the podcast and talks to us about those shadow people.
And a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and since we have such a long and intense interview with Gemma, I think we should just jump right into this. What do you think?
Absolutely agree wholeheartedly.
Well, Michelle, I think it's that time.
What time is it?
It's time for What's in the News.
Yes, what is in the news? Well, the Associated Press on May 28th of this year released that the Conjuring home sells for $1.5 million. Paranormal investigations continue. Burrillville, Rhode Island. The Rhode Island farmhouse that inspired the 2013 horror movie The Conjuring has been sold to a Boston developer who plans to keep it open to the public. Here, take a tour and take something home with you.
Yeah, don't mind those ghost and shadow people in the corner.
I'm telling you, of all things to keep open to the public, the House of the Conjuring. The 18th century home in Burrillville sold for $1.5 million on Thursday, far higher than the $1.2 million asking price.
So wait a minute. They were asking 1.2, but somebody came along and said, hey, here, take 1.5.
Oh, yeah. You've got a house that's associated with a movie.
True.
Surprised it didn't go for double that. This purchase is personal for me. Buyer Jacqueline Nunez, owner of Wonder Group LLC, told the Boston Globe. It's not a real estate development. It's around my own beliefs. Nunez and the couple who sold the home, Corey and Jennifer Heinzen, jointly announced the sale on Facebook. Nunez plans to continue the paranormal business the Heinzens started. Guests will be able to continue the nightly paranormal investigations. Day tours will resume, and there will be live streamed events. The Heinzens, who bought the home in 2019, will remain involved. Now, wait a second. It's 2022. They bought it in 2019. Something happened.
Yeah, they turned that thing around in 3 years.
That is a fast turnaround. So the movie wasn't filmed at the home, but was based on the experiences of a family that lived there in the 1970s. Nunez said she is not afraid of the house. I don't believe the energy here is malevolent. Things will happen here that will startle me, but not harm me, she said. I look forward to experiencing things.
Oh my God. Okay, let's just open ourselves up to, things not going to harm you. What in the world?
I was going to say, I'd like to see how long she keeps
She
well,
lasts.
here's the thing, it's not that she's going to live there. It sounds like if she's just keeping it public, I just wonder if she'll have like a you know, like, I don't want to say a caretaker, but like a group that comes in and makes sure that everything is like neat and organized,
sure.
but that you know, it's just there.
Well, somebody's
for
going to be running the tours.
Yeah,
and,
the business end of it.
Yeah, we'll see how long they last. Maybe we'll see an article. Let's see, this was on May 28th of this year. So maybe by about June 30th.
As soon as they take a tour of the basement.
Conjuring home up for sale. Oh, no.
$2.
Yeah.
$2.
Maybe Elon Musk will come along and buy it. But come on. Talk about opening yourself up to, you know, experiences and, I don't know, hitchhikers? No, thank you.
I don't know. I think it's cool. I love those old historic homes and the fact that
the home is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you know, one of those old historic homes. Yes, it was, you know, put into a movie because of experiences from, you know, the 1970s. It's like you wonder what happened after that. Anything happened in the 80s?
Well, I like what she said, though. Let's parse her words here for a minute. Nunez said she is not afraid of the house. Okay. Yeah, the house is gorgeous. It's a cool looking house. It's not the house you have to worry about. Now, is it, Miss Nunez? Oh,
I
no.
like the things will happen here that will startle me but not harm me. I don't know. I don't want to live or exist in a place where I have jump scares happening all the time. You know, blood pressure medication is enough. I don't need to be on like anti-anxiety meds just to exist in my business.
Yeah, that's
so
no.
Good times though. We definitely wish her the best of luck.
I'm just one of those people that I can deal with aliens and, you know, flying saucers and all that kind of stuff. But I am not a fan, even though I've had paranormal stuff happen to me. It creeps me out. It goes to a different, like, I don't know.
I've watched too many horror movies throughout my lifetime.
See, I've never been into that stuff, so.
Oh, I love them. All right, so now that we're talking about eerie things with the house from The Conjuring, you know what? We need to continue this eerie vibe and get over to the interview with Gemma.
She is an experiencer. She's an intuitive, clairvoyant, and clairsentient, but she's also psychic. And we kind of know how that whole psychic thing turned out, don't we, Michelle?
Yeah, I've got my special person who is attached to me. It's my energy.
Well, and your person might have also kicked your butt there a little bit at the end of this interview, huh?
Oh, yeah,
We'll talk about that at the end of the interview.
We'll get to that part at the end.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, back for her second appearance, we would like to welcome Miss Gemma Jade. Gemma, thank you for joining us. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be back.
You know, when we had you on, it really felt like that we barely scratched the surface when we were talking about some of these topics, such as vampires, the psychic vampires, the fae, and there were so many other things we wanted to talk to you. So I was hoping we could just kind of jump right in and start with one of these other topics. And Michelle and I had talked about this for a long time. And one of the things that we always hear about, and I actually saw them one time, didn't really realize what was going on, but this concept or this idea of shadow people. Can you kind of fill us in and the audience? What what is your take and your understanding of these shadow people? What are they? Where are they from? What do they mean?
Okay, well, luckily, I do have a book coming out probably in like August or September, specifically about the shadow people, and it's going to be titled Shadow People Beyond the Sleep Paralysis Demon. And the reason I chose that title kind of leads into what you're asking, because there are so many different so many different types of shadow people, as far as we know. And there, nobody knows exactly what they are. And the reason I think that nobody knows exactly what they are is because there are many different things. I believe shadow people are what some beings and entities from alternate dimensions, realities, and possibly other planets, that they have to present themselves as shadow because that's all our eyes as humans can perceive. So I don't think shadow people are one thing. I've done several videos on them on my YouTube channel where I talk about how, you know, you'll get the ones that just kind of lurk there and don't do anything. You just wake up and you look over and they're there, and they, you know, seem like they're looking at you, but they don't move, they don't act in any way. And then you look again and they're gone. Then you get the ones that you see, you know, out of the corner of your eye that you kind of, once you look, they're gone, but you know you saw it there. Then there are I call them the travelers. So it's the lurkers, the phantoms so far, the lurkers in the corner, the phantoms out of the corner of your eye, and then the travelers who are constantly, like, you see them in motion. You look over and they're going either left or right or front or back, but they're seemingly paying no attention to you. And then there's the attackers, who most of us recognize from sleep paralysis, or more and more lately, I have clients who are reporting being attacked while awake, while going about everyday life by shadow people. So they can be so many different things. I've myself had interactions with what I call, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, the family of shadow people, where I know there's a male, a female, and a pet type presence. I keep doing hand quotes and nobody can see me, but that's what I'm doing.
Well, no, you did not. You did not tell us about this. So yeah, fill us in on this.
It kind of goes into what I'm saying about it, them possibly being extraterrestrials. I'm very new to the field of ufology, less than a year in, because I've been terrified of ETs and the words outer space my entire life, and I didn't know why. I've had some regressed memories come up of healings and possible abductions. I'm still exploring that, but I know I was visited several times as a child by extraterrestrials. What we would say are the greys, the short ones. So these shadow people, one night after I had a convulsion that I had so much when I was little, and I would hallucinate things, but I knew I wasn't hallucinating. You know, I guess it was the early 90s. You didn't really have to bring your kid to the hospital if they had a seizure, I guess, because my dad would just throw me in a bathtub full of ice water. And then when he pulled me out, I'd go on the couch and he'd put ice washcloths about my body. I think the doctor told him to do that because I was having them so much and they were due to high fever, onsetting very quickly. So I'd go from normal temperature to 104.3 in like 10 seconds. And that's what was causing them. So the ice water would take them down. So I remember very vividly these three beings stepping pretty much out of the wall. I think they were just coming out of like the darkness at the wall because it was really late at night. It was really dark. But to me, they were coming out of the wall. And I identified them as male, female, and kind of like a little pet or a minion. I don't know if shadow people have, you know, identity, like gender identity, where they're male and female or whatever, but the energy that I was feeling as a physical medium, as a psychic, I kind of knew that, you know, they were male and female. And I started, after a while, they would appear in my room and I would wake up in a type of sleep paralysis, but it was a little bit different because I knew that the female energy was holding my arms down, and all three of them, it was kind of like that movie Doctor Sleep, where they feed and you could see them sucking the mist out of the special or psychic person, or the person with abilities. That's what they were doing to me. It was so weird. Not surprised Stephen King kind of got that right, but they were vampiric in some way. But after a while, I started telepathically communicating with them. Not that they gave me much information. I called them the family. They still visit me. I just pretend like I don't see them. They know I'm pretending I don't see them, but I have to watch my son. So I finally understood that shadow people in no form telepathically communicate, as far as my understanding and my very extensive research into the subject. So I'm starting to think that those particular shadow people are extraterrestrial. They told me they come from other. They told me they're not hurting me, but in fact just need my energy to survive, going back to vampires, right? Being vampiric, feeding off, I believe, my abilities. Again, I was this way since I was born. So I remember, for a week or so after they would quote unquote feed on me, I would be really sick and kind of lame. My abilities were very off. I didn't see as much spirit. So they were definitely taking from me. But that's kind of bringing us back to why I believe a lot of shadow entities are actually extraterrestrials. And I do believe that shadow is a way that future earthlings, if you will, people from planet Earth, humans, show themselves when they're back in time. I say back in time, a lot of people who are listening to this, if you've heard me speak, I don't believe in linear time like that. You're not reincarnated. There's no past, present, or future. It's all now. But to use that word, when we travel back in time for whatever reason, I do believe we have to take on a shadow form to stop running into our past selves or possibly interfering with something that would, make us change as a collective.
Yeah, very interesting. I'll tell you there was 2 instances where I ran into, and one of them literally shadow people or a shadow person. One time I was back with my kids, living in a different location with my ex-wife. Nobody was home. I was there by myself. You were talking about like the sleep paralysis, and for whatever reason this day I had decided to I think I got home from college. It was an early day or whatever, and I just decided to go ahead and take a nap. So I go to sleep and it's mid-afternoon and I wake up and I can move. I'm not suffering from the paralysis, but I hear what sounds like people moving around in the upstairs part of this house where our bedroom was. So I could hear this rustling and stuff that sounded like it was outside the door. Well, bedroom door was open. I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's one of the dogs got upstairs or whatever. And but I could swear I could hear it sounded like young kids or some kind of a distant voice. It was almost like a kind of echoey, and I wasn't really sure what was going on. And then, so I turn and I look and I'm thinking maybe my kids somehow got home and I didn't know it because I always picked them up from school. And I turn and look through the doorway out into the hall and I saw what looked like 3, maybe 4 shadows of people that were kind of across the floor and then up the wall. And they moved toward the stairs, so away from my bedroom door. And then about a second later, and this is what really got me, a second later while I was watching this, I'm going, what the hell was that? I then heard like the footsteps. I was like, wait a minute. It was off. It was like the sound wasn't matching with the movement. Like first the movement happened and then I could hear like the feet of somebody running and there was nobody I got up and there was nobody in the house. I was probably only asleep about a half hour, if that. I don't take many naps and I'm a very light sleeper. I mean, if the cats come in the bedroom, they wake me up walking through the door,
Interesting.
Yeah. So I didn't feel threatened or anything, but it was very bizarre how that happened. And it was almost like there was a time dilation or a time difference of
You're
when
not
I
the first
saw the
person to
movement.
report that.
Yeah. So I saw the movement and then the sound, and it was a weird echoey sound. So that was like the first kind of experience I had. So, do you want to elaborate on that a little
Yeah,
bit?
I would love to. I mean, I can talk about this for 10 days straight and not get tired. I
Well,
mean, I'm
let's not
so
give away any
fascinated.
secrets of your book or anything, you know.
No, maybe one or two though, to keep you
Yeah.
guys wanting to buy it. But
And by the way, just so everybody knows, when you heard her giggling a little bit at the beginning of her little talk there, I have her book, and I'm going to tell everybody to get it. It's the Missing the Fae Theory by Gemma Jade. It's on Amazon. This is where I got mine. Very awesome book if you're interested in the Fae and the theory of missing people and maybe their connection. You've got to check it out. And I know we talked about it a lot on our last interview with you, but yes, I actually have the book. And
that's so cool.
so,
I
yeah.
mean, thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's available Kindle Unlimited too, so you can't
Oh, there
beat
you
that.
go. Yeah.
That's actually how I
So,
got mine.
but when are we going to get the audiobook version?
I'm waiting. I think I have to sell more books in order to get offered that, but I want Steve Stockton to narrate. So let's hope. As far as your encounter with shadow people, it's not, I wouldn't say it's not abnormal because the sound discrepancy there, I've only heard that once or twice before, but it was kind of like the same thing. Somebody woke up from a nap, was fully awake at that point. And I guess, yeah, it was two other people. So both of them waking up from naps though, but fully awake. It had been at least 10, 15 minutes before they thought there was an intruder in their home. And it was kind of the same thing. It was like a group of shadow people hanging out, but theirs was like, you know, one leaning with like its elbow on the counter. Like it was like actually a group of teenagers hanging out in the kitchen, but very creepy. And then the same thing, the one person was like, I can't deal with this, and kind of turned from them like that, like didn't even want to remotely understand what was going on. Like, they're not hurting me, I'm just going to leave, have a nice day. But then it was the same thing. They heard, you know, the running, pounding through the hallway, actually heard their sliding glass door open and shut, which is weird because usually they can just walk through. So I don't, you know, I think the reason I'm so fascinated by them too is because the subject is so broad. There's no way to condense this subject because we really have no idea. I came across one of my clients. I was doing a walkthrough of her house, which I don't like to do often, but if someone's really in need, I'll do it. And she was being full-blown attacked, which you also don't see often. Now you see sleep paralysis episodes, but this person was being attacked, literally grabbed by her hair and bashed into walls by shadow people. One specific shadow entity that she somehow felt was the same one each time. And what I realized in my walkthrough was that this shadow person thought she was a shadow person. When I do walkthroughs and there are shadow people, I usually don't get much from them unless I can tell the entity underneath, like what is presenting or projecting itself as a shadow. Because other entities will do that, you know, demonic entities, even restless spirits, they'll show themselves as shadow to scare off the human, to either be left alone or to feed off the fear, right? This shadow person thought she was a shadow person and wanted her to take her to whatever dimension it was coming from. And this was really scary. And I did not know. I usually have some suggestion for how to at least tone down whatever's going on, or, you know, you need to bring in this person or you need to bring in that, kind of like, and I'm no Amy Allen, but kind of like what she does on the Dead Files, which is my favorite show. I love her. And I actually saw her have a case just like that on the Dead Files. And I had to go back to it and take what she suggested, which I don't even remember what it is, but it'll be in my client notes, and tell her, like, look, this is where I got this idea from, because I am stumped. And that's the crazy part about them. Now, I know a lot of people, and I think this is worth mentioning, in sleep paralysis will feel like they're being attacked, or they'll say that they don't feel like they're being attacked, but they feel like they're in a state of paralysis and they sense a dangerous entity. They'll see like a shadow being out of the corner of their eye, and they'll sense danger or evil, but they won't actually be attacked. And I just want to say for that, when we sleep, our spirit travels, okay, whether we want it to or not, and whether we believe it or not, it does. And what we do, from what I understand from my guides, is we visit our higher self. We kind of have these little meetings, not all the time, but sometimes, with extraterrestrial entities, beings from other dimensions, who we're the only ones with emotion like we have. A lot of us are ruled by emotion. You know, we have this wide range of emotions, whereas other entities and beings and extraterrestrials understand the concept of emotion, but they don't feel as many as we have. So they'll ask a question. Like, I always give this example: say you're in a physically abusive relationship, a woman being physically abused by her husband or a male, partner. And she gets an opportunity one day to completely walk out scot-free and leave him and go and live with her parents and, walk away clean, but she doesn't take it. So these entities, our higher self, we all want to understand, why didn't you take this? This is an amazing opportunity. And we try to explain love and all that kind of stuff. But while we're doing that, if we don't know how to protect ourselves before sleep, and I do believe everyone, whether you have abilities or not, or known abilities, should be protecting themselves before sleep, even if it's with prayer. These entities can jump into your body and overtake you. And that is the lurking feeling of seeing the shadow person at the corner of your eye, because they are waiting for an opportunity to pounce into you and overtake you for possible possession.
Now, you mentioned the one client, and I'll tell you my other story here in a minute. Has that been the only client that you've had to deal with violent shadow people affecting her? What?
No, that was the only one where the shadow person thought she was a shadow person. Sometimes I'll get shadow people that are actual shadow people, and I don't know what they are. I don't know where they come from, but I've seen people attacked by other entities, like I said, producing themselves or projecting themselves as shadow. But I get a lot of cases where people are experiencing being violently attacked, suffocated, strangled during sleep paralysis. And more lately, they're getting marks to show it. A shadow person leaving finger marks on someone's throat. Things like that, and I look into these people. A lot of the times they're people I know and or love, because I don't like doing that. But most of it's sleep paralysis attacks. But some of it, they'll just be walking around and be pushed from behind onto the ground, and they turn around and look up, and there's a shadow entity there, and then poof, it's gone. So I am receiving a lot more reports of them becoming physically violent than 5 years ago.
So a good thing you've got this book coming out. Then it sounds like you have a lot of material that you can use for it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, the other story I was going to tell you, and I've told this story before on the show, is back in our younger days, we, when I was playing in a band and I was 20 something with a bunch of other 20 something year old guys, and wanting to freak ourselves out, and anybody that wanted to come along, we would go into the tunnels of an abandoned, what is it, an insane asylum, Michelle? What was that? It's a very famous place.
What,
now they've
Eloise?
Eloise. Yeah. Now they turned it into a haunted house or something like this now. So, they're taking people through there. But anyways, back when it was closed down, it had been run down. You could basically trespass onto the grounds, and you could get into some of the buildings. And then there was this huge elaborate, it was a labyrinth of tunnels that ran from building to building on this huge campus. And it was for like mentally ill people. And I think they had used it at one point for tuberculosis patients way, way back. It had been
usually
around.
the transformation.
Yeah. We were down in the tunnels, and it's dark. There's no sunlight, there's no light or anything. And people are using their lighters and stuff to light the tunnel. We don't know where the hell we're going, and people are really freaked out. And my one buddy, Chris, standing next to me, and he was the singer in the band, and he had a little lighter going, and it was shining down the hallway just enough that we could make out a figure of a very large, what I would say would be a man, but had to be almost 6.5, 7 feet tall. And this dude took up most of the tunnel. And I was like, there's somebody down here. We have to run. We have to run. And and we were like, well, we can't see. We don't know where to go. And you could hear tum, 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 tum. And we look back and we start the lighter again. We look back and we just see this shadowy figure coming right for us. And we could hear the running. And again, it was one of those situations where I think I could see legs moving, but the sound was out of time. And maybe it has something to do with these time travelers or these people stuck somewhere. But I took a half a step back with my right leg, and I braced myself like a boxer and put my hands up, and I'm kind of looking underneath my arms, kind of shielding my head and just waiting to get slammed into by whoever's charging us. And when it hit us, it was a mist, and it felt cold and damp, and it went right through us. And it was the weirdest damn thing. I swear to God. I mean, I've had some other things, but with like the shadow people thing, we left after that. We were done. It showed us who's boss.
It's never a good idea to roam around in places like that. But I mean, I did it too, knowing what I knew back then. You know what I mean? I did
knew
try to
nothing.
fit in, I tried to fit in. I tried to be that person who knew nothing, But as far as first of all, I noticed shadow entities do hang around places like that, old insane asylums, for lack of a better term, places, hospitals where people are sick, death, feeding off not only the negativity of these sick people, but in a place like that that's been long abandoned, feeding off the residual negativity. And sometimes I've encountered shadow people who I believe are jinn, where they're trapping other souls and spirits there. And I've noticed what you just described, that experience, not so much it blasting into a mist, but sometimes the spirits that are trapped there by the malevolent or evil entity, the jinn or whatever else it may be, will try to project themselves as big as possible and give the illusion of danger because they're actually scared and very lost. What you encountered might have been, a long since passed patient who, the dead do go out of their mind after death. It does happen. Not that there's a mind, I'm not going to get into the whole physics of like your mind and your soul because I don't know much about it. I just know what I know. And that's that you can go insane. Like for instance, someone who doesn't know they're dead, someone who's murdered and dies quickly, may spend all of eternity until they connect with a physical medium or someone willing to help and capable of help, wondering what the heck happened to them, reliving it over and over and over again. And they'll start to take on this outward projection of something monstrous sometimes, to strike fear in the people around them because they are so scared and don't know what's going on. And that illusion of being attacked or that illusion of danger is sometimes a defense mechanism of a lost, forgotten, and really sad kind of soul who's just begging to move on but can't. There are plenty of entities who can keep souls around. I don't know why that's allowed. I'm very religious. I don't talk about it a lot because YouTube's not the place for religion, not in the paranormal community anyway, but I don't know why that's allowed, for these lower vibrational or evil entities to be able to claim souls, but some of them are. And I think that what you experienced, that particular one may have been, unfortunately, a lost soul just trying to scare you off because it was more scared of you.
Yeah, it's possible, but it did its job because that was the last time we ever went there, and I remember we left pretty fast after that. And I do remember too, there was a lot of like satanic like paintings and stuff that people would break in there and they would paint on the walls, and you'd see all the upside down crosses and pentagrams and
Yeah.
all of this kind of stuff. And you could tell there was probably some shady stuff that was going on in that place too by other people. God only knows what was going on in there. But yeah, just that was the last time we ever did anything like that. That cured us of that. So it did its
I'm
job
glad
really well. Yeah.
because I wish that would happen with everybody, because people using Ouija boards, people just picking up their vlogging camera and going ghost hunting through a cemetery. I know that it's hard because of our love for things that are scary and paranormal and our wish to see things. But for someone like me who just sees it anyway and understands the spirits part of it, it's actually really dangerous. There are portals and vortexes and everywhere, everywhere. I've had to close so many of those, and some of them I wasn't strong enough to do. I had to call in other people and hope that they help. And these things can be opened literally by so much residual energy, even just residual energy. If there's enough of it, like an insane asylum that used to be a place where they housed tuberculosis patients, right? My husband and I, for 3.5 years, were not getting along. And I say this because there was a lot of fighting, arguing, me crying, him being angry, all of this stuff that, a few weeks ago, we were finally like, listen, we're going to get it together. And, he's not psychic. He laughs. He thinks it's funny. But for me, every time I walked downstairs into the living room, the kitchen, dining room, living room area where most of the arguing took place, I felt like I was choking. So I had to actually clear my own house. I had to clean out under the beds, clean out the closet, sage and smudge everything. Last week, and this is more images, quote unquote, of shadow people. I was doing a stream, my live stream for 4.5 hours, where I pull one oracle card for everyone who comes in. I have my friend Steven, Ghost Dragon ZW, with me. And all of a sudden, towards the end of the stream, I saw him getting really uncomfortable, nervous. I saw him putting his hands together like he was praying. And he takes my list of people that come in, so he needs to be focused. And I'm trying to pick up what's going on. I look up, and all of a sudden, I see 3 small beings walk out of his wall. They either came from in the window or out of the wall. And they looked exactly like, like the old ghost costumes where you cut, 2 eye holes and plop it on a little toddler, like a 3.5-inch kid. It was that, but black, 3 of them. And one of them had bright blue eyes. Now, these entities are what I call tricksters. A lot of people would see them like they're shadow figures, like a miniature shadow figure, but they're not. They're tricksters. And 98% of the time, they're associated with Native Americans. And they are mischievous. They're not usually evil. But you get that 2% of the time where they're not associated with Native Americans or their culture, and they're demonic. And that's unfortunately what walked through Stephen's wall. The third being, I'll get to that in a minute because I can't even believe what I was seeing. Nobody else in the chat even saw this. People were rewinding their videos. Nobody saw it. By the end of the stream, Stephen clicked off extremely quickly. And when I messaged him after, I said, what was that? Because I said, oh, there are tricksters that just came out of your wall. I thought it was funny, not realizing what I was really looking at. And he had been burned and bruised on his left arm during the stream. And he's now got these evil entities in his home, attaching, I believe, to his son. I'm trying to work on him with that. I sent him a whole box of stuff to try to help him. But the third entity was an ET. And it was curious about the other 2 entities. And it was presenting itself as the other 2 entities were presenting themselves as a little black ghost thing, which I thought was funny because this extraterrestrial was literally presenting itself to me as E.T. from the movie, covered in a black ghost sheet. That's how it wanted me to see it. I don't know what happened there with the E.T. He said that he had nightmares that night of being abducted, which I don't think are nightmares. So I'm working with that, but I bring that up just to say another kind of shadow person, a trickster. And the reason that happened is because I think with all my channeling and connection with the people that come into that group, there's like 40 or 50 of us, somebody's abilities activated immediately. Somebody who didn't know they were a medium or a psychic or something activated. It broke all the barriers on my property. It like broke all of the spells I have at my house in near and around my home. It took my protection off me and my son. And I think it brought these things into the house, into Stephen's house. Someone just activated quickly and deactivated everything else. My son was freaking out because I keep all of the negativity as best I can out so he doesn't see it. I had to redo my entire property because of these things that look like shadow people. So you also, I know I went off on a rant there, but I wanted to get that out because you really have to know what you're seeing. And if you're inexperienced and you're just out looking for some fun or a good scare, you could really end up being hurt or killed.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit on our last show with you about the teenagers that, play with the Ouija board. And a lot of the times it's, the females, the young teenage females that, seem to have a lot of bottled up energy in them. And a lot of people, and I even said this before, will relate poltergeist activity to a teenager, especially a female teenager in the house, going through puberty and things like that, that can manifest these poltergeist. But kind of talking about that before we leave the shadow people idea, do you think that the with all the, I guess you could say, different genres or maybe even species of shadow people that you're discovering and learning about, do you think there might be a tie to the idea of the whole succubus and incubus type of entity that people report it being like strapped down in their bed and physically assaulted and things like that?
As of right now, I haven't come across anything that would say that the two are the same. Maybe similar in the behavior, but incubus and succubus, I know them to be demonic always. And shadow people, again, there's so many different things that they could possibly be, like we discussed. And when I speak to my guides or my higher self, when I speak to other psychics, Reiki healers, anybody I can get my hands on that knows anything about anything, even when I channel spirit, nobody will tell me, or anybody else, no one from over there, nothing from over there will speak on the sixth dimension. And it has me wonder if maybe it's something to do with shadow people, because when I ask my guides, like, what about the sixth dimension? Seventh are for Bigfoot and ninth are for this one and eighth are for Fae. That's not the actual dimensions, but I'm just saying, they're like, the human mind isn't ready right now and couldn't possibly wrap their mind around the sixth dimension. And then they move on. It's like unspeakable. I've spoken to other psychics, mediums. They all say the same thing. So I'm probably going to put that in the book too, as like maybe one little chapter of like, is there a correlation between, but shadow people, I believe, are being all their own. The jinn, they've been here longer than us. They've been here since the beginning of time, and they're pissed. They don't like humans, and they're going to feed off of us. And I believe, one's feeding off my mother's vulnerability with the passing of my stepfather in February. She's undergoing all these attacks. And every time I go to her house, I don't challenge the thing. You don't challenge the dead and you don't command the dead unless you're commanding them to leave. You don't command them to show themselves. That is the most, oh my gosh, it's so dangerous. I just got chills. Like, you don't do that. But I've said to it, show yourself to me, focus on me tonight. And I've never once had any issue with the thing. And my mother and my older son do not have issues with it when I'm in the house. So, I don't know. I would think it'd come more when I'm there, because some of them feed off of people with abilities.
Do you think there's something going on and there's an increase of these attacks, that something's happening in the world, or something's, I know we talked before about what is it, Mercury in retrograde.
Right.
Is there something that's triggering these?
Yeah, there definitely is. It's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine today, Miss Lotus Girl, and she and I were discussing kind of the same thing. And what I think is happening is this collective consciousness shift where a lot of us in this community, even the ufology community, whether they know it or want to admit it or not, are going through a shift in consciousness where we're elevating spiritually from 3D to 5D, seeing things clearer, being more spiritually enlightened and aligned, wanting this knowledge. That's why so many more people are coming into the spiritual side of it instead of this I want to see a ghost side of it. And we're shifting energetically as a collective, the entire world, the entire planet, but with all the good ascension, there's going to be the bad. And there are the people who their mission is to stop that. There are also entities whose mission is to stop that. And I believe these attacks are happening to people, again, whether they know it or will admit it, who have some sort of ability that is threatening to the darkness. Someone like me who, brings these things to light and I just tell you what it is. And I hope it doesn't scare you, but I'm going to tell you anyway, type thing. And all the people who are in the beginning of their search, who are like just looking for answers, evil doesn't want good to win at the end of the day. It's the age old tale, but it really is true now more so than ever, because the veil that usually they say thins on Halloween, right? And it does, but it's so much thinner now than it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago. And more people are being, like what happened in my stream last week, activated just spontaneously and not knowing what to do with that. So that's when the evil will come in and try to trick them, and in a little bit, I'd like to talk about a new entity that I'd come across recently, but I don't want to lose this subject. But I do feel like, yes, the collective consciousness shift, more people coming into Reiki, like I said, spirituality, even yoga, meditation, mindfulness. And there is a force that wants that stopped. There is spiritual warfare going on all around us. Most of us can't see it, but a lot of us are aware of it and we don't realize.
Do you think that people such as yourself that seem to have these these abilities that are turned on are constantly having this around them, and maybe people that are being attacked are finding they don't know they have these abilities, so these entities are drawn to them? So for instance, like what I'm thinking of is like, okay, I'm an entity. I'm looking for somebody that can hear me or talk to me, or I can feed off of in this case. And I know, hey, there's Gemma. She's standing out like a lighthouse in the darkness. I'm going right to her. Now you have people that are interested in the spirituality type of situation, and they're turning things on that they don't even realize they're turning on, and becoming a beacon for these things, and spiritual warfare then starts to happen against them, and they're not even aware that they're in a war at all.
That's exactly a way to put it. And even people, I feel the person who came into my chat, for instance, and spontaneously activated, I think she's like 55 years old, and she's always had very strange experiences, but she never really put two and two together that she had abilities. Her abilities spontaneously activated because she was coming into my stream where I'm channeling. She had been looking into things like shadow people, consciousness, elevation, and it activated her. So now she came into my stream the other night and told me that she was held for almost 40 minutes up against her garage door by something she knew was evil. Why is this all of a sudden happening at 55 or 60 years old to this poor woman? Because in search of spirituality and getting closer to God consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, she activated finally, her and these energies can see what her mission is, can see what her purpose is. They want to stop that. There's a spiritual war going on 24/7, 365 around all of us, every single one of us, whether you're involved in any of these communities or you're just a regular Joe working a 9 to 5 every day in an office. most people just can't see it. And that's the blocks and the like the perimeter I have to put up around my property, you know, that's to stop my son from being able to see it and to stop drawing more things to us. I've seen though where you have to be careful. Don't just go putting salt around your property, because I've also seen people trap entities in who were just kind of passing through at the time, and they could be evil or they really get pissed. And also, I know that my salt barrier, if I walk outside, right on the edge of that barrier, there's at least 3 lesser vibrational or demonic entities and a couple of shadows. Why? Because it's a challenge. Oh, she thinks I can't get in. Stupid human, I'm going to get in. And it sounds crazy, but it is true. And I see it all the time. People think they're doing the right thing. They salt their, you know, I also bury spell jars and do protection charms and all that. You can't just go around salting or smudging or saging because you can trap something, you can open something. Please know what you're doing. That's of the utmost importance, because you can live in a house for 40 years, never have activity, make one small mistake, and then you're overrun.
Let's say somebody wanted to learn about these abilities and maybe want to deal with this type of a demonic possession or these entities, and they wanted to learn about being able to handle that without having to contact somebody such as yourself, because there's nobody in their city, nobody close by.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of know what's going on, but how would you recommend that they would learn and be able to protect themselves and do something about these entities without getting hurt themselves?
So let's say in the case, are you talking about like if someone, say, is suddenly finding themselves being attacked and like haunted or whatever?
Like you were just mentioning about your mother, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
You're not close to her. She doesn't know anybody around her, let's say. And just as an example, and now she's the only one that can do this. Where does she start? What can she do?
Here's what I'll tell you. If you're in that situation, just like I told my own mother, find somebody. Go out of your way. You have to, because you can learn to be more psychic, and you can even learn to be a medium and open yourself up that way, as long as you learn, you know, the opposite, closing yourself, right, and protecting yourself. But there is no possible way. Like, there are so many different entities out there. Even if you know what you're dealing with, a lot of the times you need a holy person. A lot of the time you need a practiced physical medium. There's things that you can do to kind of, you can look these things up on the internet. And I would look up, you know, if you see something that you think makes sense, look it up 10 different times in 10 different places and see if it all says the same thing, to lessen it a little bit. But I would never suggest under any circumstances trying it for yourself. I mean, if you're stuck on a desert island, you have to find a way. You find a way to lessen it until you can get a professional out there to help you, because God forbid you should accidentally trap something or open up a portal and bring more things through. And a lot of it has to do too, Wayne, with the land. The earth is pretty dang old, you know, and we're just building, even if it's a brand new house, it doesn't, how old is the land it's on? I went to a town, and again, to bring her up because I love her, Amy Allen had the same issue when she went to a town. Mine was in PA. I don't know where hers was, where the whole town was like, I couldn't breathe. I was in tears the entire time. The entire town was overrun with dead people. And it was because of a Native American massacre, the blood that ran into the ground, the curses that were put up. And I mean, I didn't know how anyone lived there. Sometimes I go into places and I'm like, I don't know how the living live here. I don't know. I don't understand it. I believe everyone has abilities to some extent. I believe everyone's born with the same abilities, the abilities that I have. I believe everyone's born with pretty much everything, or at least one thing. It's just we're fine-tuned from the minute we're born that, you know, oh, that's nonsense. Ghosts aren't real. There's no monster under your bed. No.
I recently had some offline conversations, and then Michelle and I talked to online Jared Murphy. Mm-hmm. And he's now doing a weekly conversation with Lynn Wallington on rebellious ufology.
Love
And
her.
yeah, great. And we're going to be interviewing her in the end of July.
Love her. She's my mentor.
Yeah, she's definitely one of a kind. Very, very awesome. But when we talked to Jared, and I'm kind of with him on this camp and the whole idea of this terra preta, this manufactured terraformed type of soil, which has certain abilities to it that they find all over the world that activates certain things within people. I'm still looking into it, but when you talk about things, going to graveyards and let's say, and you're burying people, the bodies in the ground, you have terra preta possibly in that area, which is supercharged, which could open up portals. Or if you're walking onto terra preta and you might have a little bit of an ability, it's going to reactivate those abilities in you. And that, we were thinking, and Jared, I don't want to speak for him. I don't have his book yet or anything like that, but the idea is that this land can activate certain things in your DNA, and that we are basically walking memories of a time long ago before we were, a lot of us 76,000 years ago were wiped out, but it wasn't aliens that helped us build this, that, or the other. It was us. And it was activated through our use of this terra preta, this bioengineered soil is the best way. I don't know a ton about it, but it just seems like underneath these megalithic structures and things like that, which haven't been tested, but it'd be very interesting to go under like Machu Picchu or under the Great Pyramids and dig down and see if that soil is present underneath these giant megalithic structures. And the reason I bring this up is because there's always this talk about like a theory of everything when it comes to paranormal, UFOs, science, all of this stuff. And this kind of fits that bill of, why are there these different entities? Well, these could be very advanced humans that they don't need to expose themselves to us. They know how to move in different ways. And what would a 100,000-year-old human look like today? That, it might have evolved and looked differently, especially with the use of certain technologies. And so his idea, and the name of his book is it's not aliens, worse, it's us. And that's the name of his YouTube channel, Not Aliens. And it's fascinating, but I think there's possibly something to it that connects all this and connects abilities like you have. And why can some people see this and others can't? Well, maybe when you were born, you were raised and played outside on terra preta and you had no idea, none. And that activated that.
That makes so much sense. I never heard of that about the soil, but it does make sense because it's like you said, just like I was saying, there are some areas, I always protect myself. I don't allow entities to jump into me, but there have been a couple times when I've just been, on a vacation, like in Texas in Fort Hood. I was walking my niece to school and then all of a sudden I'm crying and I'm screaming, what's going on? Help me. I had been jumped by an entity, and my niece is sitting there filming me, thinking I'm kidding, because she was only like 7 at the time. She didn't understand my abilities. And, I was on the ground and I had this entire death experience of a wandering entity there. But why did that happen there? There are wandering entities everywhere. I went and spoke at a recovery group last night and there were 6 deceased in the room.
Hey everyone, we hope you're enjoying the podcast. We're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors and some friends of the podcast.
Hi, this is Chris Lato of the Chris Lato YouTube channel, retired F-16 pilot turned UAP investigator, and you are listening to Wayne and Michelle on the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast.
What is up, you guys? It's your girl Gemma Jade from Gemma Jade YouTube, Moon Bear Oracle, Paranormal Chop Shop, and Spaced Out Radio After Hours Show. You're here listening to Wayne and Michelle with the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast.
Hi, everyone. This is Jared Murphy of NotAliens.com, and you are listening to Wayne and Michelle from Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast.
What's up, everyone? This is Burton.
And Aaron from Lost in the Dark podcast.
And raise your horns because you're listening to Wayne and Michelle from the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast.
Hi, this is Sev Talk from MUFON and the author of You Have the Right to Talk to Aliens and the host of Alien Spirit TV with Sev on YouTube. You're listening to Wayne and Michelle at the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast.
Hey there, it's Richard Serrett, occasional weekend guest host of Coast to Coast AM and host of The Conspiracy Show. And you're listening to Wayne and Michelle's Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast.
Hi, this is Terry Lynn Keel, Director of MUFON Memberships, investigator, demonologist, and author of Alien Healing, the true story of a benevolent extraterrestrial. And you're listening to Wayne and Michelle on the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Michael Schratt, military aerospace historian and private pilot, and you are listening to Wayne and Michelle at the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast, and we're glad to have you with us today.
Hi, this is Alex Novitsky, and you're listening to Wayne and Michelle on the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast. What I'd like to show you guys is the infinite pool of experience and awareness, which can be found at luciuslabs.com. And it's a book that I've written after basically meditating for 27 years. Basically goes over modern physics and takes you all the way from modern accepted physics to understanding that we live in a layering of conscious types within time and that our consciousness is eternal.
Why did it happen there? So I definitely, I really want to look into that. That's so interesting. And I just want to say before we move on, something I didn't get to bring up with shadow people, and I don't know much about it. I just want to put it out there. I'm working on a theory that I've come across some shadow person possessions. As far as, like I said, when we sleep, we leave our body and the shadow people wait and lurk, whatever their actual entity is, I don't know. But I've come across a theory between my two most favorite topics, besides the Fae, which is shadow people and BEK. And I'm wondering, there aren't just black-eyed kids, there are black-eyed people as well. Are these things shadow people, possibly extraterrestrial, possibly, who have jumped into children? I always said I wanted to see like missing persons posters from like the early 1900s and look at the descriptions given, like have someone who encountered a BEK have a sketch done and then compare it to missing persons, missing children from throughout the world and see if there's not a connection there. And I just did a video on my channel about how UFOs are possibly us from a very distant future, sending the UFOs with the intelligence inside to, for whatever reason, what if it's not aliens, quote unquote, it's actually us using these, this very, very advanced millennia away technology and sending it back in time to try to help us with something. They're clearly experimenting on abductees. The video, I think one of the main theories I covered, and it's not my theory, it's just a theory I heard that I kind of made sense to me, is that the reason is because we can no longer, for whatever reason, reproduce, and we have to come back and harness sperm and eggs and chromosomes in order for, in this, millions of years down the line, to continue being human. So yeah, I mean, it's all so fascinating. And again, I could just go on and on and on. And I usually do, because there's so much, and it all connects and then doesn't connect. And it's massive. It's absolutely massive.
It is. It's massive. And one of the things that we had talked about too was like past life regressions and things like that. When you go through these things, the idea is that your DNA is basically our DNA. We're all carrying DNA of each other. We are the backup for the human race that went through a cataclysm when Mount Toba erupted 76,000 years ago, and there was only 10,000 pairs of humans left. Everything was wiped out from these massive volcanic eruptions. So there's only 10,000 mating pairs left on this planet. That's scientific fact. We know this. Yeah, there's a bottleneck of genetic material and things like that. So we are it. And what we have now is 8 billion people. All of humanity is spread out throughout our genes. And we were talking that when you go through like a past life regression, or you think you've had these things happen to you, it wasn't you, but it was you, because you are recovering, you're activating the DNA that has that memory. And then I asked Jared, I said, well, if you really want to throw evolution into a loop, just say there's no such thing as instinct. What everything is acting on is not instinct, it's programming. And the earth is basically a gigantic bio computer that's running in safe mode, as he likes to put it. Is that it's a computer, it's an organism that's basically been shut off since that massive destruction that happened. I mean, come on. People can say what they want. All you got to do is point to these megalithic structures that are up on mountains with perfectly shaped polygonal boulders that it would take 1,000 people to move an inch.
With modern equipment.
Right. And they fit together perfectly. You cannot fit a piece of paper into the seams. They're bent. They're like molded. And everybody just goes, oh, hammer, copper chisel. They just sanded these things.
That's that dismissiveness that the enemy, that the lower vibrationals, that people want to depend on. That's my husband. I love him to death, but that is my husband. If I showed him that mark on my mother's arm, it is clearly a handprint. My mother sleeps alone. My 17-year-old son sleeps in the other room. No one else in the house. She wakes up with a clear handprint with fingers completely bruised onto her body. And he'd be like, oh, she probably fell. And that's acceptable for him. And I'm looking at his birth chart. I am very surprised. But yet, back when I was using, if I left the house and he messaged me and said, hey, where are you? And I'd be like, oh, I'm home having lunch. He'd be like, no, I don't think you are. He has abilities. I'm just waiting for them one day to be activated. But there are people like that. My father's the same way. I recently came across, I think I was saying before, a new entity that I hadn't encountered before. And it made me extremely nervous. And it's attached to my father. And I wanted to tell him, and I've been literally actually crying over this, scared. And I talked to one of my friends and I said, the only way I'm going to be able to explain this to my father, my Irish Catholic father, is by telling him I had a nightmare about it multiple times. And that's why I think there's something going on, because he'll take that. I had a dream about grandma, and she told me to tell you, to cut the BS and stop doing what you're doing. If I tell him grandma visited me the other day while I was working on my book, he would completely dismiss me. But if I said I dreamt about grandma and she gave me this message for you, he'd be in awe, like, oh my gosh, my mother is giving me this message. So this entity, I call it the addiction entity. And what it is, it's so hard to explain. And the reason I really wanted to talk about this just briefly here is because maybe some of your listeners, I have not found anybody else who's encountered this with or without abilities. Okay. So maybe someone would be able to help me out, and I'll leave my email. Obviously I'm really, so what I'm seeing on my father's pretty much a lifelong addict, 28 years now with the big H, and he found a very young girlfriend, well, my age, so much younger, and she is doing the big H and the big C. So now he's doing both and pretty much killing himself. And what I saw attached to him was, I took it as demon, but it like wasn't fully formed. It was kind of disfigured. Did somebody just walk past your window outside?
It was Michelle.
Yeah, I had
Oh
to
my
get something
gosh.
to drink.
Girl, you are killing me. Before I saw her hand behind him, I'm like,
Yeah,
oh my
I'm
God,
like quiet and in stealth mode.
Well, what just so people know that directly behind me is like a curio cabinet, and in the back of the cabinet is a mirror. And Michelle's got her camera off as we're doing this on Zoom, and she had gotten up to get something to drink. And so when I moved a certain way, you can kind of see Michelle in the reflection of the mirror behind me. And so you don't want to be talking
It
about
was not intentional though.
demonic entities
Sure.
and then having something moving around behind somebody else on the
whole
screen.
shadow went on the blinds next to you. You have white blinds next to you, and I saw a shadow, and I was like, oh my gosh. All right, sorry.
And you might also see our black cat. We have 3 cats, and the black cat likes to jump up behind me and blend in.
Thanks for the warning.
Yeah, so
I'm just looking out for you guys. When I do interviews, I do connect with the other person's energy, and I just want to make sure. But so this entity is, I took it as very evil, lower vibrational, demonic. But here's the thing, and this may sound very strange, guys. And again, because I'm not familiar with it, I don't know anything, and I can't find anything online either, really. So it's not fully formed. It's a little bizarre looking, like its face is kind of ghoulish and all messed up. It's fairly tall. I'd say about 5'11", maybe up to 6 foot. And its wings are not clearly formed, like fully formed, but they're very clear that they are there. They hang back on the body. This entity, from what I picked up from it, and it was really enjoying telling me how it was feeding off of my father. It said that while it doesn't cause addiction, and guys, I'm in recovery. I'm not indicting anyone I'm not making a statement on that. I just want to make that very clear. I'm not stating one way or the other about addiction. I'm just talking about this specific entity that I came in contact with my dad. So it was telling me that while it doesn't cause the addiction, it kind of roams around as energy looking for people who are very much addicted. And once these people are at their absolute most addicted, where nothing else matters, which a lot of us get there in addiction, but there's a certain point you reach, and then you really reach a point where most of us don't get to, because by that time we die. So you're at this point, and this thing is suddenly not only this evil half demon thing, but it's a creation of my father's energy, that all the negativity around him. So it's also a totem. So while it doesn't cause the addiction, it helps the addict make poorer decisions. It helps them get their hands on more of the drug. And then once they die, it takes their soul and tortures it for all of eternity until they somehow remember the light. Which they usually don't do because of the torture. And for obvious reasons, this terrifies me, because I know what happens when we die. I communicate with spirit all the time. And I didn't even know there was such an entity. I knew there were entities that could trap souls, but there are more mediums than you think who the soul can come to and get some help. There is help. And normally, if the soul can just remember the light, usually Jesus, but I like saying the light because I don't want to make a religious statement either. I try to be real careful. If they can remember that even for a split second, they will be freed. But this entity was so gleeful about that, not like, that's not going to happen. Like, once I have this soul. So I can't find anything about it. And I'm wondering if anyone out there has heard of this. It might not even be just with addiction. It may just be with very lows, maybe people who take their own lives. I don't know. It really scared me, and I'm not scared of much. I got to be honest. So really scared, looking for answers.
Yeah, the first thing that popped in my mind when you were explaining this thing was, I'm not, I don't know, I don't have experience with it, but what came to my mind was, this is a creation of the person using, and you're literally giving birth to this type of an entity as you slip further and further down that addiction rabbit, or not rabbit hole, but deeper down into that pit. Then this evil entity is what is being birthed from it, and then it would, leave the host like a parasite and go to somebody else.
Amazing way to put it, birthing it. Yeah. And that's the thing. I saw this thing where it was like attached to someone else that I know and that my father knows, who is recently in recovery. It was like it wandered the area. It was already a fully formed living energy, an entity, when it reached my dad. Normally, I think that's not the case. From what it explained to me, was that it had been a creation of someone else when it was, yay big, a few feet high. And then my father, because of how bad he is, fed it and fed it and fed it. And it also feeds off his girlfriend as well. But the main attraction here is my father, a lifelong hardcore addict. So it scares me. I wish I had any kind of, I'm very artistic with words, but when it comes to like drawing, sketching, I am lucky to get a stick figure done without making a mistake. So I can sketch it. So I've been asking around. I've asked on all my live streams. I've asked in some videos, just maybe if anyone has any kind of idea what this thing is. What I understood too, it cannot be exorcised. Like, I can't go and get rid of it for him. There's no crossing it over, because, where would it go? There's not even a banishing it back to where it came from, which wasn't really hell. It was like this energetic state in the air, in places that have a lot of lower vibrational energy, like my hometown, the town I love, Paterson, New Jersey. But that place is full of negativity and toxicity and homelessness and crime and all that stuff. So it was very interesting being almost 40, not quite, and coming across something completely new. Shadow people, I know there's going to be something new popping up and around every corner, because they're so massive, such massive difference between how they behave. And it's fascinating sometimes for me to watch them. ET's the same thing. But when I come across a completely unknown new entity, but it may only be that for me, there may be other people who've had experience with it. And obviously, I would not self-disclose so much if I wasn't very concerned and wanted to get it off my dad. So just wanted to throw that in there. And I'm also very curious what it is. I mean, can we protect ourselves from it? Who else does it attach to? I want to know everything there is to know about everything. If you watch my channel, you'll see I cover like a million different topics, because that's just who I am. I love words and I love knowledge,
Yeah. So if anybody does have any ideas or want to try to help with this, we'll put Gemma's email in our show notes, or you could just email us and I can forward your information on to Gemma and let you guys discuss it. Again, for me, it sounds like this is something like a parasite almost in a different realm, but it also makes me think of I always remember, or can't remember the name of these things. Topas, I think they're called, where it's like
tulpa. I keep saying totem. I meant tulpa. That's the word was escaping. Yeah, a creation of your own energy. People think
or
it's
a
of
collective
the mind, but
conscious.
Yes.
Like you get a lot of people thinking, worried about terrorism and stuff, and then what happens? A terrorist attack, or things like that. So, but this is more like a supernatural type of a situation where all this energy is going out there.
It's crazy you said that, because I was recently talking about a spirit that I had channeled a while back. Um, I think I mentioned, did I mention this when we spoke in the last interview? We were talking a little bit about collective conscious, and I said there was an entity that I had channeled
I
that,
believe so.
yeah, that her husband had in fact murdered her.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you had hinted to some of this, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's exactly what that is that you're speaking of, is like the collective can really do some really great things, like a consciousness shift, or it can really do some damage if it's negative, which is why, guys, it's really important to clear your home of negative residual energy. If you're not experiencing any haunting or attacks or anything like that, you just feel a little stuffy in your home, or you went through recently like a really bad time, then you can take some white smudge and look up on YouTube how to do the prayer. That's okay, as long as you pretty sure that you don't have anything in there. There are ways to cleanse residual energy from negative feelings. You could have a brand new home and you got into a fight every single day for a year with your significant other or your kid or something. That's regular residual energy that builds up. I highly recommend a spring cleaning of the spirit, I like to call it, and I do it right around this time of year. Takes me a few weeks, where you just clean out under your beds, clean out in your closets, clean out your refrigerator, clean out everything you possibly can. Smudge those corners, light some sage candles if you can't deal with the smell, and get rid of that residual stuff, because it could eventually, if there's enough negativity, it can take on a life of its own as a tulpa. And I see that so much more often now, again, than I did back in 22 years ago in the year 2000, when I first started really working with them.
And I know people will probably poo-poo this and go, oh, there's more of that woo stuff and all that, but nobody would poo-poo or do the woo-woo type of sound if there was a prayer chain going around for somebody in your family who was on their deathbed, or they didn't know what was going on, and you get 1,000 people or a whole congregation in a church praying for somebody to get better. And we've all heard the stories. They've been on the news. They've made movies about it. So and so, it's a miracle, they just healed. Well, the negative of that is true as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what you were referring to, stay away from those negative energies, but the good energies happen as well. So you can't have one without the other. It's it's a dualistic world, yin and yang, black and white,
Absolutely.
good, evil, so I just want to just put this warning out there for people. If you think this is too paranormal woo woo for you, just think about that, because I bet somebody out there that has healed, or I mean, I have a friend from high school whose grandson was born with a defective heart and had to go through all kinds of surgeries as just a newborn. And everybody's send the prayers and all this stuff, and they were like, this baby's not going to make it. We hate to tell you this, that kid's like 2 years old now.
Yeah.
And all of these people were behind it, like praying for them and giving good vibes and thinking about them. And you put that out there, you can't tell me there's not something to that.
There's there's at least something to it, whether you, whatever you want to believe it is, I believe in it, because I mean, it's real. I get a lot of hell, and I expect it. When I come on other people's shows, I go in the comments and I'll, especially on YouTube, and I'll look, and I did another show recently where they put it on YouTube, and people were like, oh, she watched The Sixth Sense too much. And I'm like, that's the first 5 minutes of that interview. The rest of it was about like ETs and shadow people. And I'm just like, you just came into this looking for a reason to poo-poo what I was saying. And that's okay, because I know my own experience. And that's why I'm very, very careful to never, ever call someone a liar or say, I'm psychic. I know most of the time when someone's lying. I know when someone's not a cryptid huntress remotely hunting Bigfoot from their couch, but I would never, ever say that to somebody. I would never do that, because what if they are having some kind of experience that I'm not picking up or I don't possibly understand? I know what it's like to be shunned by my own family. I know what it's like to be literally 8 years old and locked up because I see and hear things other people don't. I know what that's like, and I would never ever do that to anyone. And you know what? If you don't want to believe it, you don't want to accept it, then that's okay with me. I'm good with that. I hope that someday you do come to some kind of understanding of it, because it's a beautiful thing when you look at the good side of it and the spiritual elevation side of it in the light. But mainly so that you can understand the darkness that surrounds you at all times.
Yeah. And, kind of piggybacking on that, if you are hesitant about understanding this, just know that our universe, as our government now, is now acknowledging UFOs, UAPs, and things like that, and a UAP task force, and there's congressional hearings that have happened. The universe, we're finding out, is much stranger and paranormal than anything we could ever probably dream up of in our own little minds. And to think that you have all the answers is, and that's what turns me off with some of the people in the community, is
and that the answer is nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
On top of that,
Right. But when you have a governmental body and other governments as well starting to follow suit, saying, yeah, there are these things in the air, we don't know what they are. Okay, it could be alien. It could be advanced humans from that have been hiding on, maybe in plain sight, maybe down at the bottom of the ocean where we can't go, maybe under Antarctica or something, right? All of this stuff, it could be all of this things. And once you can open your mind to thinking about and accepting how big the universe, people can't even comprehend how big Earth is. Like, we could take all 8 billion of us and stick us in a state the size of Texas with 1 acre of land, and we would not be crowded. All 8 billion. That's how big the Earth is. Yeah. I give 8 billion
it's almost,
people.
You can't conceptualize it.
You can't. Yeah. Right. You are a flea on a gigantic dog when you're on the Earth, but you're very powerful. And these are these
multiverse.
Yeah, these are this knowledge and stuff that I think we had 100,000, 200,000 years ago, because we've been around with this size brain for at least that long, if not longer. And you can't tell me we haven't been through these resets and this up and down before in the past, and natural disasters and things. And we're now the most advanced we've ever been. Okay, well, what about the Vedas, where they talked about wars happening with nuclear weapons, things like that? It's just mind-boggling. But all I'm saying is that people should keep their minds open to a universe that is in energies around us that are here, that we have no idea what it is. So the best thing, if you don't want to believe it, fine, just go back to sleep. And right. Go in the Matrix.
Like the Matrix. And yeah. There's a couple things that you touched on that I just, want to touch on really quick. And that's, I'm trying to take little notes here, but with energetically, I wanted to say, yeah.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm sitting here scribbling. Michelle's very proud of me. She's over here nodding at me as, the school teacher does, sees me writing down notes. Yep. That's a good little student.
I love it. You guys are so cute. I found a client recently. Well, actually, it was a friend, and her son was going through absolute terror. I mean, the guy was emotionally wanting not, to end it all, and he didn't want to leave the house. And he was just, the most despondent I think I've ever seen someone. And I did a reading for him. And what I explained to him was, and this is true for a lot of people, myself included, I have to go get cords cut, that attachments that I have to negativity, people, places, things. So I just gave him this reading, which he didn't really want me to do. And he didn't want to listen to. But I will tell you, and I'm not bragging because it's not me, I'm just the messenger. It changed his life. He pulled out of his depression at 20 something years old. He got his first girlfriend. He's getting a job, all because of some things that I explained to him. He was so empathic and had such an ability to hang on to things. He had brought things with him that he was holding on to at some 20 something years old from 4 different past lives. Negativity, bad experiences, they were leeching on him like a monkey on his back, and he didn't know how to get rid of them until he was aware of them. Now, had he chosen not to accept what I said and, like you said, gone back to sleep, he would probably still be in the same state and not finally having a girlfriend and finally enjoying life. And that's what I love so much about what I do, is a lot of the time it doesn't phase people and they just move on with their day. But every once in a while I get someone like that really is just willing to try anything. And I'm usually that anything. You know, what I do, people like me are usually the last resort. Let's be real, right? I mean, no one wants to admit that they've gone to a physical medium because they're depressed. But it happens. I'm not a healer of any kind, except that I give messages from spirit. As far as past lives, I want to tell, I know we're going long, but I just want to tell a really quick story that's been in my head since the beginning. So there was this woman, it's not someone I know, it's a story that I heard that I believe. So this woman was in a new house and she felt very drained and like bogged down. She was probably had abilities and didn't know. So one day she goes into her living room to throw some firewood in her chimney or whatever. I don't use my fireplace. So she put some wood in there, and the house was built in like the 1700s and hadn't had much upkeep, but it was livable. So she's in there and she starts feeling really dizzy and sick. And when she turns around, there is suddenly a dinner table in front of her made of all wood, wooden benches, a big giant man who looked like some kind of farmer, and a woman who was calling kids for breakfast. She can hear it. She can see it. It was like watching a life-size movie, a play right in front of her face. The woman called the kids. 2 kids came, a boy and a girl. The one big man sat down next to the 2 kids. The other big man sat down. The wife served the food, and she's just watching all this. And all of a sudden, the little boy taps the man next to him, and they're the ones not facing her, so they would have to turn around to look at her. The little boy taps the big man, whispers something in his ear. The man turns around. The little boy turns around. They look at her and point. The big man whispers something to the little boy, and they both turn around and go about their business. The mother looks up, looks her dead in the eyes, and the whole scene vanishes. What happened? What happened is time is not linear. Past lives, present lives, future lives, they're all happening right now, just on different dimensions. The Gemma Jade that didn't take notes during this interview, the Gemma Jade that isn't drinking Red Bull and Smart Water, but that's drinking regular tap water, the Wayne that decided to shave the wizard beard, all these different
That'll
versions
never
of
happen.
Every decision that we make and don't make, and I know, again, this is so massive, it's hard to conceptualize, guys, but please understand that I know this as truth. Please, it's all happening. So sometimes what we're seeing is not a spirit or an entity or even residual. It's simply we slip. Time slips, glitches in the matrix, whatever you want to call them, do happen, and they happen very often. So I wonder, was that woman the quote unquote ghost to that little boy? Was he a physical medium in his 1700, 18th century life? Am I as a physical medium just witnessing? Now I know I see spirit and all that, but am I sometimes witnessing these time slips? Yeah. A lot of the time I'll tell people, well, you have a very thin veil in your house and you are slipping into these other people's homes and they're looking at you as though, what are you doing here? Because they're still living in 1600s, right on this property, right in this spot, right in this home. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do to rebuild a veil except understand what's going on. Hope that they do, because next thing they'll be trying to exorcise you, right? But that's what happens. And these are just really important things that I want people to understand and know. Whether you believe me or not, that's fine. But I really hope that's that collective consciousness shift, shifting as a consciousness.
Yep. I think you said it great right there. Well, we've been going like an hour and a half.
Yeah, I could talk. I
Again.
know it. I could talk.
And we got through one item I wanted to get through, which was shadow people.
I'm so sorry.
I have no. That's all. That's
talk a lot.
That's what it's all about. I've got alien species I want to talk about, and your knowledge about that. Black-eyed children. You kind of hinted on that, and then you brought up something I had to write down: portals.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly talking about ley lines and nexus points where these ley lines cross and things like that. But I think we're going to have to start wrapping this up because we've been at it a while, and I think this
Come
would
back
be
anytime.
Yep. Yeah, I think this would be a good point for us to kind of start wrapping this up, and I want to talk about what you got going on in the future. But I did want to give people some report. I don't know how long this will take, but after your last reading that you did for Michelle on the last show you were on, and then our one friend Burton from the Lost in the Dark podcast, some very interesting things happened after that reading. One of the things you talked about was Michelle's spirit guide being around her, having the name of Noreen, or was it Nora?
Nora or Noreen.
And what did you end up finding out about your mother's?
Well, my mom's middle name is Nadine.
Nadine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was interesting. Also,
That's probably it.
You were talking about a financial, not a windfall, but more, well, anyways, kind of a little thing happened. Yeah, a little bit of money. She won a little bit of money with the Michigan lottery. Nothing like thousands of dollars or nothing like that. But it was very weird that, what was it, Michelle, 2 days later, that you just happened to be playing online, and
it was a couple days. I was playing on Michigan lottery,
and won a couple $100. It was just very interesting.
It's like, is this the windfall?
Right.
And so, it probably was. If there was nothing else, that was it.
No major big investments or anything, but
can't retire yet.
Not right. Yeah. I don't think we're gonna be getting retirement out of anything like that. But then what was really interesting, and I'm gonna go on the dark side here a minute.
Ooh.
And I promise not to mention any names. But you had mentioned you did a reading and you kept on talking about Mercury in retrograde and how that can mean for, you were picking up on this. Watch out for snakes in the grass, people to stab you in the back. And you were saying you weren't sure if it was for Burton so much or if it was for me or Michelle. Watch as your podcast gets, more and more likes and popular, I guess. Watch out for people stealing ideas. Don't put new ideas out there and things like that. Well, let's just say we've run into some of those
people. Take my advice.
Well, you know what? I guess I should have wrote it down on some sticky notes and put it up on my.
Well, let's just say that it happened and leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And very disappointed in people in the community. And I guess why I didn't really think about it much is because everybody's always throwing around this idea about ufology and the paranormal being a community. I'm calling BS.
Yeah.
It's
I call shenanigans on that as well.
Yeah, I am calling. A lot of people are out there to be YouTube internet stars and just wanting to grow their channels and take from little people and take ideas and use them as their own after they say they don't know anything about that, and we don't want to talk to you about that because we're not really up to speed on that topic. And then release a show that's all about it later. So that tells me that are you really in it for learning and helping people learn about things,
The
or
advancement of the field,
yeah,
maybe?
yeah. So it just I didn't really think that would apply, because how everybody uses this word community,
Mhm.
and the backstabbing and stuff that I've seen that has gone on, and
Oh, yeah.
and who really is valuable to somebody else that they can use for their talents or their ideas or whatever, and then make their $10 off of YouTube ads or whatever. And so here we are as little naive, ignorant school teachers, and dipping our toe in something because we had an experience.
Because of
And
passion. And
yeah,
that's the difference.
now,
Not to interrupt you, but that's the difference. The
yeah, we
passion
want to
and
learn,
yeah.
right? We want to
Yep.
learn. And we had started learning in 2018 just by talking with people on Facebook in our Facebook group. We didn't start the podcast to do anything else other than to talk to people and look at what are your experiences and things like that. And we've talked to people from MUFON now. We've talked to people like you. We've talked to authors like Terry Lovelace, Ray Szymanski. I mean, all over the place. And it's so diverse with so much information out there. And so many people's ideas are so different because I think they're having such different experiences. And it's just kind of a letdown in a way of the behaviors that I've seen. And I don't know. It feels like I'm at work at the high school dealing with drama that has caused us as a podcast now to really rethink about who we talk to and interview on the show, and things that we want to bring up. But let's just say there is that dark side of ufology, and the people out there, and you can't trust everybody just because they say they're part of a community. I think that word gets used as a dodge, but we're all part of the community. Yeah, well, you're still an individual person with your own individual goals, and you don't care about what you got to do to get to where you want to be.
I just want to cheer right now because oh God, you're so right on. And I love that you're being very respectful about it. And when you have the right to be calling out people and you're not. And I respect you for that, for keeping your integrity and your dignity intact, despite what was done to you, things that have been done to me. We just have to be more careful and understand that not everyone has our intentions. Okay. Not everyone has the same intentions. We're good people just trying to advance the community. So not everyone's like that. And I'm glad I gave you guys that message, and I hope that it sticks more with you, and with me too.
It does. Lesson learned. So, all right, Gemma, what do you got coming up? I know you got like 3,000 shows and stuff you're working on, 30 books in the works. Line it up for us and tell us what's going on.
Okay, so I have the Gemma Jade YouTube channel. All right. And there you can find, mostly I discuss paranormal topics, extraterrestrial, supernatural, listener encounters, that type of stuff, my own experiences. I have Moon Bear Oracle, where I do Oracle. I'm trying to get at least a monthly for each astrological sign going. That channel is slow going, but I could use the subscribers over there. So it's just Moon Bear Oracle. If you'd like a personal intuitive oracle reading from me I was going to say from now till June 3rd, but I don't know when this is coming out. If you'd like a personal intuitive oracle reading from me, I don't have a set price. I really just do it by donation, like a suggested donation. So, and it's very low. So if you are interested in that, you can email me at moonbearoracle@gmail.com. It's 7 to 12, possibly 15 cards across 3 to 4 decks. I go really in depth. Wayne was just telling you guys about how I was accurate about a few things the last time when I pulled for he and Michelle. I have a book coming out that is a collaboration with Steve Stockton. It's 100, I believe it's tentatively titled 101 Real Short Ghost Stories. And our goal and I say this because Steve said it, was to make these stories scary, true, and short enough that the average person could use the toilet while reading one. All right. So that's how long it's going to take you to get through one. They're no longer than a couple of minutes. And then I have the Shadow Person Beyond the Sleep Paralysis Demon book coming out. And I mean, that's pretty much it. You can find me here and there on interviews, but mainly on my channel, Gemma Jade, and doing my thing with the Oracle cards. And then you'll get more information from me over there about other side projects and things like that. And thank you guys so much for having me. I can't wait to come back already because I love
so much to talk about.
Yeah, there really is.
Now, if somebody wants to support you and I don't know if people really understand this or not, but when people donate through, let's say, YouTube, isn't that like, doesn't YouTube take like 50% of that or something like that?
Here's what I normally tell people. I will put like my Patreon in there, but during my live streams, and in the description box of my videos, I put my PayPal link and my Cash App link, because I got a $99.99 donation multiple times, and YouTube took $49.99 out of that. YouTube only pays once a month. So if you donate, on the 1st, I won't even see the money that I do get until the 21st. So if somebody wants to support me, usually I buy decks with it. I buy crystals and, usually things for the channel. I would recommend PayPal or Cash App. And that's usually what people donate through, because YouTube, they barely give you with ad revenue. And so it is easier that way. But, come on into one of the live streams Wednesday nights, 7:15 to 11:30 Eastern. I do a 4 to 4.5 hour 1-card weekly reading pool for anyone who comes in, free of charge. And that's about it. That's what I got.
Awesome. All right. And of course, we'll have all of those links in the show notes. So if you're interested in going over to one of her channels and supporting her, hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget about ours as well. Help us out, subscribe, let us know that you want us to keep doing the show. It sounds like it's going to be a feisty year, especially with Mercury in retrograde. So let's see what's going on. All right, Michelle, any last minute words?
I would say until next time.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Gemma, for joining us.
Take me back to a place where I felt at home. Take me back to a day when we weren't alone. Take me back to
Well, that was kind of a creepy interview. And man, Michelle, what happened to you?
That's the whole thing. I think about 75% of the way into the interview, my head started hurting, and I'm like, okay, is this the weather? Take some ibuprofen. But it was literally one of those crippling headaches.
Yep.
That it was just time for me to go to bed, shut my eyes, and hopefully it was going to go away.
Yeah, you got hit pretty hard there, because I looked over at you and you were like stretched out on that computer chair, like in some serious pain. And it was when she started bringing up, what was it, talking about the name of your mom, what her nickname was, no,
it wasn't her nickname. It was her middle name.
Her middle name, yeah.
Yeah, it was that, just, a combination, I think, maybe two, my brain trying to analyze and visualize everything.
I found the whole idea of, and I never heard of this before, but the shadow people attacking like her mom and other people she said that she's had to deal with that were actually under attack by these shadow entities, whatever they were. That was the first time I ever heard anything like that. I found that extremely interesting.
Well, the first time that I ever heard shadow people was almost like a flashback to the movie Ghost, and the shadows that would like drag along the concrete and pull the souls into the depths of hell. So, and it's like, you wonder if someone who was writing for that film and any other film who, that's done this, and I feel like I'm going into a film analysis, were they ever an experiencer of shadow people, or, you know, did they do the research of shadow people before they decided to implement that into some sort of film? So I don't know. I hear these things and then I like try to paint a picture in my mind.
Yeah.
And compare it to things either that I've read, things that I've, you know, watched on TV, in movies.
Well, that was one thing I wanted to ask Gemma, and I never got to it. Is there like ancient writings, or is there past writings of shadow people or these things? I think she said something about the jinn at one point.
Yeah, she talked about the jinn.
Man, I don't know. They just sound like disembodied souls, or, I mean, just depending on who you talk to. And we're going to have a guest coming up here, hopefully toward the end of July, that's going to talk more about this and the ET connection to the supernatural. And
yeah, let's not give too much away.
No, I'm not going to give too much away, but we're going to have a very interesting guest who is a demonologist.
Okay, just to leave it at that, Wayne. Leave it at that.
I can't help it. I'm excited to have him come on and talk. So, all right, Michelle, where are we going next?
Well, what about YouTube?
Oh, yes, YouTube. Hey, everybody, we got a YouTube channel. Don't forget, we're on there. So if you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, for whatever reason, you can find our shows now all up there on YouTube. Just search us out by typing in Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters Podcast. It's all one word.
Yeah, including all of the other major platforms too, including the one that you're listening on. So, and then remember, if you have a story you would like to tell, we would like to talk to you. You can reach out to us at mi.ufo.podcast@gmail.com. Send us a brief summary of your experience and we'll contact you to discuss things further and try to get you or your story on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been pretty quiet lately. We need some ghost stories or something to
I know, I need some time
in.
back in Communication Corner.
Yeah, so please send us those stories. And then also, if you like the podcast and would like to rock out some of the latest swag we have, head on over to our online store at www.miufopodcaststore.online.
So, and we've got some new designs for the second season.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
And then don't forget to check out our Patreon page if you would like to support the podcast there. It is patreon.com/MIUFOSPEP, where you can sign up. We can't wait to give you a shout out for all of your support.
And also something new that we have is you can buy us a coffee.
And it's what we're drinking right now.
Absolutely. It is a teacher's drink of choice.
Oh, no, it's not drink of choice. It's survival liquid. And I don't know if it's my survival or the kids' survival. One of the two, possibly both.
Somewhere in this house, there's a coffee cup that says, "My coffee is my anti-murdery juice," or something like that. Yeah, so anyways, you could buy us a coffee. Just find the link in the show notes, click on that, and you can make a donation and buy us a coffee. As low as like $5, and every little bit helps the show and helps us get more guests and buy new equipment and things like that. So
$5, that's a gallon of gas.
It's not even a gallon of gas right now.
Not from what we saw in town.
$5.19 for regular right now.
Oh, all right, folks. We're gonna wrap things up.
Yep. And once again, everything that we talked about can be found in the show notes. And Michelle, why don't we just go ahead and call this a night?
Yep. Have a great night, everyone.
All right, everyone. Have a great night. And remember, keep your eyes to that sky.
You have been listening to the Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters podcast. You can reach us at mi.ufo.podcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at mi_UFO and join our Facebook group by searching for Michigan UFO Sightings and Paranormal Encounters. So until next time.